Welcome to Wildlife Wonders. My name is Jane.
And I'm James.
And we're going to talk to you today about mange.
Woohoo!
It's a hot topic.
It is.
It's, I think, on social media, it's one of the hottest topics because what happens generally is I'll see on our Facebook page we're tagged and by 20 different people on one post, and it's someone has seen a mangy fox in their neighborhood. And what a mangy fox is these foxes are so skinny. They've lost so much of their hair. They have a lot of times extra skin kind of piled up, and their eyes are usually pretty squinty. They look awful.
Yeah.
They look awful.
It's so sad.
It's so sad. And sometimes you'll see it with the coyotes too. And people get very upset. In fact, right now, there's one in Leominster that has, and initially it had a piece of trash stuck around its neck. Otherwise, it was perfectly healthy. That was months ago. And now it's succumbed to mange. So mange is it's a mite. It's not a virus. It's a mite it's microscopic, and it burrows under the skin of their hosts, and it moves around under the skin, and it defecates under the skin. And so those sorts of interactions make the skin really itchy. A lot of these animals develop secondary allergic reactions to this as well. So these animals are just miserable. So if you have a few on you, it might drive you a little bit nuts, but these animals have so many on every inch of their body, and they just cannot get comfortable. Their eyelids are itchy, everything hurts. And when you have a carnivore, that now we have mange on our eyelids, we can't sleep at night because we're so itchy. These animals get very lethargic. They can't hunt because they can't see well because they're so tired. And with their skin so compromised, they have issues with homeostasis. They have issues with maintaining their body temperature. And, your average fox should be around 101 in their body temperature. But some of the ones we've received, it's not even registering on our thermometer. Their temperatures have been so low. And I think our thermometer registers.
It's supposed to be 94, 96, some of them.
Yeah. But that's been really bad too. They struggle, especially in the fall, but so that's when people are seeing them because they're so cold and they're trying to find the sun. They really want to bake in the sun. A lot of times in the mulch beds and stuff, they love the mulch beds because I don't know if anyone's ever stepped in one of those or touched one when the sun's out.
Yeah.
Or if you grab the bag from Home Depot, you just feel it. It really holds the heat, and the foxes love it because they're so cold. People will tag the fox and be like, it's got rabies, it's out, it looks terrible, it's clearly sick, and typically it's mange. And sometimes rat poison. I won't go into the weeds. Yeah, usually both. So people call and they're like, please catch him, or nobody will help.
Right.
I hear that a lot of times. Nobody will help. It's such a difficult situation of how to help.
Right.
Because how many rescues have we tried to do for foxes?
Too many to count, I feel like. But even since I started with Newhouse, 20, 30
probably
per year.
We've done a lot. And usually when we go, we're bringing 4 teammates to try to capture these foxes that look awful. And we've all got nets and we're all trying to sneak up. And they look like they're on death's door, but the minute they get a sense that we're watching, they run. And we probably catch, half of them, I think. And that's only because we come out when we think we have a shot, when we think they can be enclosed somewhere. But even then, they'll still evade us, even looking like they're on death's door. So it's really hard because there's this... We can't legally trap them, and I don't really like the idea of trapping anyway, and it's just so much could go wrong there. But we're trying to get to where they're slow enough that we can catch them, or they've gone somewhere where we can catch them, but they're not so far gone that we can't bring them back, And when we get the call when they're down and out and they're not even running or moving at all, those ones are exceptionally hard to bring back. So I tell people, if it's coming out in the sun more, which they usually do, keep an eye on it and talk to your neighbors.
Yep.
Communities where the neighbors will talk to each other and jointly have interests in this animal's well-being are where we're able to help them, because you've got this neighbor talking to that neighbor who's like, oh, he went under my shed. Oh, he's in my barn. Or we start to know where this animal likes to hang out. And then I'll get people's cell phone numbers and I'm like, okay, text us the minute he's back in that barn. Just close the door when he goes in. Or sometimes we'll set up underneath the shed. We'll block off all exits except for one. So when they go in, they essentially are trapped. because we just go in through the front, we'll close the front, and then we've got them.
Which is probably a little bit terrifying for people outside of wildlife rehab to actually be crawling under a space where you cannot escape with a wild fox.
Yes.
While you're on your belly crawling around under a shed.
I wouldn't recommend it. We're all vaccinated for rabies. I wouldn't recommend it to most people, but these foxes too were showing proper neurological signs. These foxes are trying to get away from us. Like, we've never had one where we've gone under there that they're just coming at us. And no one should do this if they're not permitted, licensed, experienced. But when we go under there, we also have a catch pole, which that can help push the fox away if necessary. But we've never had that happen before. We're not touching them with our bare hands or anything like that. We're just trying to get them out from that space, and it's the best place to do it. But they're terrified of us. Yeah, they're just trying everything they can do to just get away, and I hate that. And another issue too we should discuss is this domino effect of what happens in their bodies when we start to chase them, because people will be like, "Just try. Can you at least try?" And I'm like, I only want to come if we've got a good shot. Right. Because what we've noticed is the foxes versus the coyotes. The coyotes don't stress as easy. They don't want you near them. But the stress doesn't seem to affect them intrinsically so much as the foxes. Like, they get so stressed and so upset. And whereas they're so compromised and skinny, they haven't eaten in a long time, what we've seen several times is we're chasing them. They're very stressed. They're using energy they don't really have. We get them into a carrier, and their glucose levels start to tank before we can even get back. Yep. Like, we've started to, thank goodness we have the wildlife ambulance where we can run the glucose tests and see what's going on or where we're at. But it starts this domino effect in their bodies. So we don't want to be chasing them around, because what if we start that domino effect in their body and we didn't catch them? So some people think it's because we don't care, but it's because we've done this enough times to understand what's going on, and we want to save them, because they will die when they're that bad. They're not going to overcome it all of a sudden, but we don't want to do it in such a way that we make it worse. And these foxes also will remember. Yes. If we try to rescue them and we fail, if we go under your shed and it doesn't work out, they are not going to go under that shed again. Nope. They're too smart for that. So they're very cunning, and you have to take all of that into consideration too. So it's not like you call us, we come out, and we just address the situation, which is, I think, what a lot of people think. They're like, I saw this fox cross the street on Main Street, this address at this time. It was maybe a couple hours ago. So if you guys can please help him. And I'm like, I want to. Yeah. I do. I have no idea where that fox is now. You're an hour away. But then you do hear people say, oh, they just don't care. It's like, no, we care so much, but we need to be given a chance. So it's just a much more complicated thing than I think most people realize. Yeah, I don't think they realize how much coordination it really takes and how much of a team effort it really takes to be able to catch these foxes. We've had some people go absolutely above and beyond to try to help these foxes, which I think is really inspiring. It is. Like, definitely people who will watch, who will set up cameras so they know where they are. But then we also have an issue of people trying to medicate them without talking to people, without having an expert do it. And it sounds like we're being mean, but the whole giving them ivermectin, because they have this places that will just mail it to you. And in some places it's legal. In Massachusetts, it's not. My concern about it is a few things. First of all, the amount that you can give a fox would kill other animals. And whatever, you can't know definitively the fox is going to get it. Like, you don't know what's going to get it when you put that meatball out there, or maybe you inject it into a mouse. I don't know how you're going to do it, but the amount meant for a fox would kill a squirrel for sure. So that's a concern. And then also, if it is the ivermectin, you have to give it again in 2 weeks. Right. And if you don't, if let's say you give them this ivermectin, the fox is starting to feel better, you've killed all the live mange mites on him, and he's not coming around anymore because he's feeling great. And then the eggs that were there hatched because the ivermectin didn't kill them. And then he's starting to feel sick again. Well, he might not come back to you. He might not get that second dose of ivermectin. So essentially all you've done is prolonged suffering, right? Which is the worst thing you could do. You actually may prolong his suffering by 2 more weeks, because now he will still die. It'll just be he lived like crap for a little bit longer. Yeah. So that's a concern. And then the coyotes we've triaged, we've noted most of the adults have heartworm. And without going too deep into it, you can ask any vet, like, you don't just give an animal with heartworms ivermectin.
Right.
Because when an animal has heartworms, there's all these microfilaria, which are baby heartworms, that are swimming in their bloodstream, and ivermectin will kill them all at once. And what will happen is if you have a bunch of tiny, tiny worms in your bloodstream that die all at once, you can go into anaphylactic shock. So you could essentially kill the animal by giving it that medication that will kill the mange, but will also kill the animal. So it's just not wise to be diagnosing an animal with mange just from looking at it. Like, these take skin scrapings to definitively know. It could be a fungus, it could be alopecia, it could be a lot of things. And then there's multiple types of mange too. So if you don't have the right type of mange, that's not going to work.
Yep.
So in fact, we should talk about that, the two different types.
Yeah. So we have the scabies, which is what we were just talking about. And then there's Demodex mange, which is a naturally occurring organism that is on most dogs. When they have this, usually there isn't an overgrowth, so it's not causing them clinical signs. It's not causing alopecia. It's not causing them to be super itchy, all that kind of stuff. But when they have a dip in the immune system, that is when the Demodex mange is able to take hold.
Gotcha.
And so we've seen it relatively frequently because the adoption industry is so large, where these animals are shipped sometimes all across the country, and that is really, really stressful on an animal. And so that amount of extreme stress, and you have all of these animals all together, which the Demodex mange is something that's naturally occurring, but then they can also sometimes get scabies on top of it, and they can have a co-infection of both of them simultaneously.
Right.
Because it's so highly infectious, and they're in such close quarters. Usually they're shipped around on either trucks or in an airplane, but usually if they're in trucks, they're just kind of in like a large 18-wheeler that is just lined with crates all the way around.
Yeah.
And so them being in that close quarters is really a petri dish of yuck.
Yeah, so many issues. So the scabies, I always thought scabies was for people and sarcoptic mange was animals.
Sarcoptic mange, and they're sometimes called scabies.
Okay. I only ever heard scabies. I was like, because people have a mange.
Right.
But it's not the same as what the foxes and there's other wildlife that have that particular mange. It is zoonotic, which means we can get the mange that they have, but it can't complete its life cycle on us. So we can't get mange like that fox is going to. We'll be itchy for maybe a week or so until they die. But human scabies is different.
It is, yes. One thing, too, is a lot of people will not think that it is mange from their dogs or something along those lines because they can't complete their life cycle on us, but we can continually be infected with them. Like if your dog has it and you're not treating your dog because you don't know, you can just keep getting reinfected and you don't really know why you're so heckin' itchy, but it's because these mites just keep jumping from your dog onto you.
And you can get a stronger allergic reaction each time you're exposed to it, too. Because I know anytime we treat a fox with mange, if I even have my wrists showing, because we fully suit up, like we're going in, like
Tyvek suits,
everything.
goggles.
But there have been times I've pulled up my sleeves. I've just been exposed to it so many times that if there's a space between my glove and my sleeve, I will break out right there and have itching and red marks there. So yeah, I get mange sometimes, but yeah, it's good, right? It's normal. So it definitely, but I'm super sensitive. So you might have these mites jumping on you and not even realize it, but I would definitely know if even one got on me. And they're so microscopic you wouldn't see them. So people will worry if they do understand this. They worry about their pets. Like, oh, okay, this fox keeps coming around and hanging out in my yard. My dog's going outside. Will he be able to get it? And I'm like, absolutely. Your dog could totally get it if he's hanging out in areas where that fox is hanging out. I tell people, if you've got a mangy animal hanging around there, put your dog on something like Revolution helps. Revolution will help for a month if you put it. It's like one of those oils that you put on their back. I don't know if another one, I know there's Bravecto that works for 3 months, but you could talk to your vet about it and just say, hey, there's a mangy animal hanging around my area. And you also might want to get a fecal done on your dog at that time too, because a lot of these foxes that are very sick, they're doing a lot of scavenging, and a lot of them are coming in with a plethora of intestinal parasites, which are spread through feces, so they could totally your pets could totally get them as well. So not to say that mangy fox in your yard is going to make your pets super sick or whatever, but you will just want to be extra cautious because we know that there's something coming into our yard that could potentially spread. So and that's another reason why it's important to watch the animal, to keep our dogs away from where the animal's going, and to try and get it help as best we can.
Yep. It can take a while for them to start developing clinical signs once they are exposed to the mites too. It can take anywhere between 10 days to 8 weeks for them to start showing symptoms.
Really? 8 weeks?
Yeah.
I didn't realize it took that long.
Yeah, it can. And I was able to find the scientific name. It's Sarcoptes scabii, and that is where like the colloquial name scabies.
Okay.
Kind of goes.
Well, I learned
to.
something because
Yeah.
I only ever heard scabies when it was people, and I was like, but James is never wrong. Let me call him out. I've got one shot, and I still was wrong.
With the environment too, where you said, the foxes a lot of times have intestinal parasites when they're compromised, that stays in the environment for quite a while.
That's a good point.
And it doesn't have to be, my dogs don't typically eat the feces of other animals, but they may run through the feces of other animals. And then when they have that on their fur, on their paws, and then they go to clean themselves, that's a mode of transmission for the parasites. So it's not necessarily that your animals are eating the poop or hanging out really closely with the fox. It can happen pretty easily.
Yeah, it's crazy and we've had discussions about that before, and I won't get too much into the weeds, but where we've talked about sterile technique and trying to not to spread diseases with different animals. When we're working with an animal we're concerned might have distemper, and then switching to another animal that could possibly get distemper, changing our gloves every time, changing our outfits, not touching anything. If you touch a handle of something and then you change gloves, but then you touch that same handle. There's so many different ways that parasites and diseases can spread. So you just want to be cautious. Even if you're like, my dog's not eating poo. Well, there's like 100 different ways that poo can get into your dog's mouth without him eating it. So
if you want something to really traumatize you, they do sell kits where you can get lotion, and it's a like cross-contamination exercise. And so you get this lotion that's UV reactive, and you put this lotion, they use it a lot in nursing schools. So you put this lotion on, and then you go and wash your hands, and then you're supposed to look at your hands under a black light, and it'll show you just how many spots you missed and that whole thing. And then from there, sometimes they won't show you under the black light immediately. They'll just have you exist in a room for 15, 20 minutes. And then after that, you can blacklight the entire room, and then you see fingerprints and cross-contamination everywhere. It lights up like a Christmas tree.
Really?
And so you can see really how these things can spread super
so
easily.
Easy.
Yeah.
When we get these mangy foxes, and talk about not even just the things you're touching, but the mange, it jumps.
Right.
So
they're movable.
They move. They can jump pretty far. So like when we get these foxes, they're in their own separate room, but we still have to be very cautious. Like we're not, the blankets that they soil or whatever, we just throw those things away. We're not washing those things. It's definitely, we have to be so careful. But once we've killed the mange, they still look mangy for a long time. But I always get very excited about making sure the mange are all dead, because I'm like, I don't want it to spread to all the animals, even when they're separated in a separate room. I worry about just walking into that room, walking out. When I open the door, they can spread like that. It happens a lot where people's pets don't get it, but we just want to be extra cautious. So I would say if you saw a mangy fox or a mangy coyote in your yard, that you would contact your neighbors, see if they've noticed it, and try to find out where it's going, or if it's going into a place where you think it could potentially be captured, then get us involved and we'll start talking. Sometimes we'll do a site visit before we attempt to capture it, to see where's the best place for you to let us know when it gets there. So there's a lot of different ways we can go about it, but we can't just, if you saw it crossing the road one time, unfortunately, believe me, if we could, I totally would. There's foxes, coyotes. We also see a lot in porcupines. It's so sad when they get it.
Yeah.
I feel with the porcupines, it's either fungus or mange when they come in, and the mange typically tends to affect their face and their underbelly, everything underneath, whereas when they get fungus, typically we see it all on top and in their face. and they look so pitiful when they get it. That one's not as obvious. You can kind of see it in the face, but whereas you don't really see their bellies very much, you might not notice. You'll just be like, something's not right with this porcupine. Whereas the foxes, it's pretty obvious, and they're really coming into the sun. They're coming closer to your house, and it becomes more obvious. And then another thing, too, is we're usually checking out the area for bait boxes, any signs that people are using rat poison, because oftentimes these foxes and these coyotes are dealing with secondary rodenticide poisoning on top of that. And so I keep saying not to get too in the weeds, but I could just go on tangents. When they have rat poison, we have to be so cautious, because the first step typically when the vet sees these animals is they want to hydrate them. A lot of the animals, that's one of the basic things we're trying to do, because they come in dehydrated. But when these animals are dealing with rat poison and we increase their blood pressure, we could make it more likely for them to bleed out too.
Right.
And a lot of them have a very, very low albumin, and there's like this domino effect of their veins can't hold in the fluid because of the rat poison, so we can't hydrate them too much, but they need the hydration. And what are their livers like because of the rat poison? But we also got to give medication for the mange. And so it really complicates their treatment a lot, where it does require a doctor, and it does require blood work and people monitoring these animals. It's not a situation where you can just throw some medicine out and be like, I did it.
Right.
Saved it, unfortunately.
Because a lot of times, too, they'll have secondary skin infections. They'll have all of these things that are knocking the immune system down, are opening them up to other sorts of infections, other sorts of illnesses. So they're more prone for parasites, skin infections, and everything.
Usually have eye infections too, and that the antibiotics,
decubital ulcers,
big time. They usually have those ulcers too. So definitely, you want to get help, and if you can get in touch with your neighbors, that's where we've seen the most successful ones. If you have neighbors that really want to help, even if you don't have neighbors that will help, if you can observe and try and figure out where this animal is denning without getting too close, without stressing it or interrupting it, just observing it, you could say, hey, it keeps going under here, over there, and then we can come up with some ideas on how to contain the fox. But we've done, over the past 2 years, we've done over 65 foxes, and so we've got a lot of experiences that we're happy to do it. And I hate to see any fox die from it, or coyote, because it's such a slow, progressive thing.
Right.
It's not like being hit by a car where they're gone. It's weeks or sometimes months of suffering, and we definitely want to help. We also have videos and stuff about it as well that show more like what mange looks like, what these foxes look like. So you can watch those too. They're on our website. It's newhousewildliferescue.org. So you can check out those videos. And what else do we have? We have a video on YouTube about that as well.
Yep.
You can watch more of our Wildlife Winners podcast on YouTube and on Podbean.
Yep.
There's all kinds of things that Podbean is attached to. Just depends on what your preference is for listening to podcasts. I've learned so much. But you can follow us on there. But if you have issues with the fox at Mange, also don't hesitate to give us a call.
Yeah.
We're happy to help.
We help people, too, that aren't necessarily local. If they need guidance on what to do, we still will send them our articles and our videos and all of them. That way they're better informed and are able to come up with a plan to try to help these foxes.
The information's key. I think knowing is half the battle.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next time.
Bye.